players, and welcome to another dive into 10 new or strange rules interactions you might get wrong when you play Disney Lorcana's Reign of Jafar. Just as in past videos, I will cover 10 new rules or interactions that have come up thanks to brand new card designs, mechanics, or newly discovered interactions. I'll walk through how they work and make sure that you or your opponent don't get them wrong at your next league or set championship. Number 1. Fantastical and Magical. This is a very interesting card that definitely caught my interest when I first saw it. Fantastical and Magical is an action song that has Sing Together 9 and reads, for each character that sang this song, draw a card and gain 1 lore. A couple of questions come to mind about it. First would relate to overpaying the cost. Can you overpay for that? And according to Steve at Ravensburger, that answer is yes. So now let's say that you have a 3, 4, 5, and 6 cost character in play. The Sing Together cost here is 9, so you could sing in several different combinations to pay for this card. You could use the 3 and the 6 to sing, you could use the 4 and the 5 to sing, but thanks to this clarification by Steve on the official Discord, you can also exceed and go above the cost to sing something, including Sing Together. So you could choose to sing with any combination of 3 characters or even all 4. And since the effect of the card here is directly tied to the number of singers, you can be strategic about specifically how many you choose to sing. If you sang all 4 here, you would draw 4 cards and then gain 4 lore. A second question involved Ursula, Deceiver of All, and this goes directly to some of the wonkiness of that card. And before we tackle Ursula, we need to make sense of playing a card for its printed cost and not singing it. If you just pay 9 ink to play this card, it doesn't do anything, nothing happens. Or more specifically, you play the card and as it resolves, it checks how many characters were used to sing it. Since you paid ink, that number is 0, so you would draw 0 cards and gain 0 lore. You might see where this is going with Ursula. If you use Ursula and some number of other singers to play it, let's say Ursula, Genie, and Diablo, you would get the full effect first time, in this case drawing 3 cards and gaining 3 lore. But due to the way that Ursula is written, you are playing that song again for free. You're not singing it. So the second time it comes around, when it checks how many singers, that second instance of playing the card will give you 0 cards and 0 lore. Lastly, and excitingly, this effect will double stack with cards like Jafar Striking Illusionist. Let's say that you have a Jafar in play along with a Cusco Wanted Llama. You have them both sing Fantastical and Magical. From a previous video, the act of singing exerts the singing character before the song resolves. Also a common rule knowledge for Jafar singing A Whole New World. Anyway, as part of Fantastical and Magical resolving, you will draw 2 cards for the 2 characters used to sing. The drawing of those cards then triggers Jafar's Power Beyond Measure ability, and those marbles go into the bag, waiting for the entire card to resolve. As the rest of the card resolves, and you get those 2 lore, then you go to resolve Jafar's triggered marbles that are in the bag, and you gain an additional 2 lore for those cards drawn. I'm excited to see this one in action as someone who loves playing Jafar. Number 2, Bambi Little Prince. Bambi is a fragile little 1/1 that quests for 3 and reads, when you play this character, gain 1 lore. And when an opponent plays a character, return this character to your hand. So what happens if an opponent plays a character that banishes it? Well, let's say it's the opponent's turn and they play Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, which deals 1 damage to each opposing character when she's played. What happens to Bambi? Is he banished or back to hand? Let's play it out. The active player plays the Tinkerbell, and on play, the ability Rock the Boat enters the bag. At the same time, Bambi's Kind of Bashful ability also sees the play of Tinkerbell, and that ability goes into the bag as well. From Rule 875, if there are abilities for multiple players in the bag, the active player resolves all of their abilities first, 1 at a time, including any that were added as a result of resolving abilities. So the active player who played the Tinkerbell resolves that ability first and puts 1 damage onto Bambi. But, per Rule 192, a game state check is made at the end of every step, after any action or ability is finished resolving, and after each effect in the bag is finished resolving. As part of that check is described in 1913, saying if a character or location has damage equal or greater to its willpower, that character or location is banished. This means that before there is an opportunity to resolve Bambi's return trigger, the game state check sees that there's lethal damage on him and Bambi is banished. Number 3, Nothing We Won't Do. Hey, look, another Sing Together song. Though this one has a lot less to do with Sing Together mechanic and a lot more to do with the wording of the effect and its possible unintuitive results. Nothing We Won't Do is an 8-cost inkable action song with Sing Together 8 and reads, ready all your characters. For the rest of this turn, they take no damage from challenges and can't quest. Because of the way this is structured as thing period other thing, period. There is no intervening if clause or wording to limit the second part of the ability to only characters readied by this ability. This means whether your characters were readied or not when this is played, this second part of the clause still applies. This is similar to the ability We Can Fix It on Moana of Motunui, which reads, whenever this character quests, you may ready your other princess characters, period. They can't quest for the rest of the turn. In both cases, the separate they in the second clause applies to everything named in the first clause, regardless of their status beforehand. So be sure to quest beforehand if you plan on doing so with some of those characters. Number 4, Madame Medusa Deceiving Partner. Medusa is a Duel Link Ruby Amethyst character with the ability Double Cross, which reads, when you play this character, you may deal 2 damage to another chosen character of yours to return chosen character with cost 2 or less to their player's hand. As described in 7122, this is written in A to B format, wherein you have to take the action of the first clause, the A, in order to get the effect of the second clause, the B. But what's interesting here is how would this look if you wanted to damage and return the same character? Well, let's look at an example. I have a Diablo in play, and I play this Medusa. Her ability on play triggers and is added to the bag. If there are no other effects to be resolved, we go to resolve her Double Cross ability. On resolving it, I choose my own Diablo to place the 2 damage. Does Diablo get banished, or can I return it to my hand? Well, it depends on the game state checks. As described earlier in 192, a game state check is made after an ability is finished resolving. So in order to resolve the Double Cross ability fully, we have to do the last part. And part of that is returning a character with cost 2 or less to hand. So I can choose my Diablo and return it to hand before the game state checks if there is lethal damage. This need to resolve the card fully may sound familiar, especially with Diablo, because it's the same reason you would draw a card off of Diablo Devoted Herald if it was chosen by Let the Storm Rage On. Diablo sees the card being drawn before it finishes fully resolving, allowing you to draw, and then once the effect is fully resolved, the game state check sees the damage and that Diablo is banished. Number 5, Vinnie Green Pigeon. This little bird reads, during an opponent's turn, whenever one of your characters is banished, gain 1 lore. Well, what if you and an opponent are both at 19 lore, you have a Vinnie in play, and some other character like a Mulan on board, and your opponent has a Merlin goat. The opponent plays a Be Prepared. What happens? It's a little tricky because there are a couple of things going on. First, does Vinnie see the other characters being banished? And if so, how do we reconcile both players going to 20 as a result of the Be Prepared? Well, one of them relies on Vinnie seeing Mulan being banished. And as outlined in 194, Vinnie's ability triggers as a result of a game state check, being banished by Be Prepared. And so it is added to the bag to be resolved in the normal manner. This results in characters seeing each other banished simultaneously, was also confirmed by Steve from Ravensburger as posted on the official Discord. At this time, Merlin's goat's Here I Come ability is also added to the bag to be resolved, because he was also banished by Be Prepared. We now have 2 ability marbles in the bag waiting to resolve, both of them representing the winning lore. So who wins? Well, we know from Rule 875 that if there are multiple abilities in the bag, the active player resolves all of their abilities first. So in this case, the active player is the one whose turn it is, which in this case would be our Be Preparing player, and their goat trigger would resolve first, giving them the win. Maybe next time, Vinnie. Number 6, Light the Fuse. This is an action card that reads, deal 1 damage to chosen character for each exerted character you have in play. Seems straightforward enough. If you have 3 exerted characters, this deals 3 damage. However, the wording and templating is different from a similar kind of effect on Strength of a Raging Fire. That card reads, deal damage to chosen character equal to the number of characters you have in play. An initial reading of Light the Fuse might imply that this would resolve differently as multiple instances of 1 damage rather than a single instance of variable damage like Strength. If that were the case, a 1/1 with resist 1 could survive this card regardless of the number of exerted characters, because each instance of 1 damage would have been prevented by the resist. However, after hearing responses from Kyle at Ravensburger for clarification, this is not the case, or at least not the intention, and will not be ruled this way. The key is the interpretation of the phrase for each, and in his words, the term for each in our context is asking for a grand total, citing example like Queen's Castle and Prince John as getting a single value from a for each statement. The confusion came because cards like Diablo Devoted Herald resolve multiple instances of one action, but functions differently because the trigger condition is per card. Most conclusively, though, is when he states, all of them are all or nothing. The for each is the most important part here, and technically Light the Fuse is just all because it's an action and there isn't any may. Or to put it simply, it works like Strength of a Raging Fire despite the template wording being different. It looks for a number of exerted characters, then deals that amount of damage in total. Number 7, Jiminy Cricket Level-Headed and Wise. Jiminy Cricket has the ability Enough's Enough that reads, while this character is exerted, opposing characters with rush enter play exerted. The question is, if an effect were to give a character rush, would that character then enter exerted? Well, no, but yes, but also no. Let's look at 2 examples. The first is another new card, Mushu, Your Worst Nightmare, which has the ability All Fired Up that reads, whenever you play another character, they gain Rush, Reckless, and Evasive this turn. If my opponent has a Jiminy Cricket in play and I have a Mushu, will the next character I play come in exerted? Well, in this case, no. From Rule 773, because Jiminy Cricket's Enough has the character enter play differently, it's a static ability that needs to see Rush on the character before it enters. But because Mushu's All Fired Up ability is a triggered ability, that means it won't grant the character Rush, and the other keywords, until after that character enters. So when you play something like a Pegasus with Mushu in play, All Fired Up triggers and goes into the bag. Pegasus then enters play and then All Fired Up resolves, giving it Rush, Reckless, and a redundant Evasive. Because Pegasus did not have Rush before it entered, Jiminy Cricket's Enough's Enough doesn't see it, and so Pegasus doesn't enter exerted. But what about another example, using Peter Pan's Shadowfinder? He has the ability Fly, of course, which reads, your other characters with Evasive gain Rush. Let's use our same Pegasus character as an example, but instead of Mushu, we're a Ruby Amethyst deck playing Peter Pan. We have a Peter Pan in play, and when and how does Peter Pan give Rush, and how is that affected by Jiminy Cricket? Does that matter? Well, actually it does. Peter Pan's Fly, of course, ability is not a triggered ability, but another static one. And as described in Rule Section 7.6, and specifically described in 7.6.1, they are effects that alter characteristics of a card and are continuously active for the length of stated time, usually for as long as the card providing the ability is still in play. In our case here, using Pegasus, because Peter Pan's ability is static, it means that all evasive creatures just have Rush already. It's not a delayed trigger like Mushu. So when we go to play the Pegasus with Peter Pan out, Jiminy Cricket sees the evasive rushing Pegasus as it's played, so Pegasus would get the replacement effect and enter exerted. Number 8, Stitch Experiment 626. Stitch has 2 abilities, but right now I'm just concerned about the second one, Stealth Mode. This reads, at the start of your turn, if this character is in your discard, you may choose and discard a card with Inkable in order to play him for free and he enters exerted. On the face of it, this is a fairly straightforward card. Discard an Inkable card to play it, but he can be messed with specifically with at least one tricky card, Hidden Inkcaster. That's an item that also has 2 abilities, and we really only care about the second one, Unexpected Treasure, which reads, all cards in your hand count as having Inkable. Similar to the effect described previously, the Inkable attribute is a static effect as described in 7.6.1, because it alters the characteristic of a card continuously, and specifically in 7.6.4, some static abilities are part of the characteristics of a card. These static abilities remain on as long as the card generating the effect is in play. So Hidden Inkcaster's Unexpected Treasure ability makes sure that all cards in your hand have the characteristic of being Inkable. Therefore, when you go to trigger Stitch's ability and activate Stealth Mode, all the cards in your hand could be used to play him for free, regardless of whether the printed cost on the card was Inkable or not. Number 9, Namaari and Tinkerbell. This one covers 2 new cards and an interesting interaction they might have. Namaari, Single-Minded Rival, is a 0/5 character with 2 abilities, Strategic Edge, which reads, when you play this character and at the start of your turn, you may draw a card, then choose to discard a card. and Extreme Focus, which reads, this character gets +1 strength for each card in your discard. Tinkerbell Insistent Fairy has a relevant ability, Pay Attention, which reads, whenever you play a character with 5 strength or more, you may exert them to gain 2 lore. So there are 2 questions here. First, if I already have 5 cards in my discard when I play Namaari, does that ability trigger Tinkerbell? And that's a quick one. The answer is yes, because Namaari's strength is a static ability depending on the number of cards in my discard. So when Namaari is played, she has 5 strength already when she's being played, and that satisfies the condition to trigger Tinkerbell's Pay Attention ability. You can have her enter exerted and then gain that 2 lore. But what if I only have 4 cards? Could I use Namaari's first ability to draw a card and then discard, bringing my discard pile up to 5, and then still be able to trigger Pay Attention? Well, no, unfortunately. When I play Namaari, in this case, she only has 4 strength. Her Strategic Edge ability needs to trigger and resolve after playing her. So by the time I go to add my 5th card to the discard pile, she's already in play and missed the window to be caught by the Pay Attention trigger. On the plus side, you have a nice 5/5 in play, and that's better than nothing. All right, and the last one for today, number 10, Lumiere All Fired Up. First, there was a bit of a mistake with the posting of this card and some confusion around the amount of lore and the keyword abilities, but this is the official card shown here, an evasive 4/3 for 5 that quests for 2 with shift, evasive, and the relevant ability Sacre Bleu, which reads, whenever one of your items is banished, this character gets +1 lore for this turn. The question here comes from being paired with Royal Tantrum, which is an action card that reads, banish any number of your items, then draw a card for each item banished this way. Do you get multiple lore gains from Lumiere for banishing multiple items with Royal Tantrum? As in, if I banish 5 items, will I get +5 lore to quest? And the answer is actually yes. The key comes from the phrasing of whenever one of your in Sacre Bleu. The word whenever triggers on each instance of the thing it's checking, or in this case, it's checking banished items. But it also says whenever one and not whenever one or more, meaning that it will trigger on each item banished. This seems intuitive for items being banished one at a time, like using 3 popsicles to heal damage 3 times because they are individually triggered. But this templating also applies to mass simultaneous banishing, like I find on my Platinum and here with Royal Tantrum. If I play Royal Tantrum with a Lumiere in play and I banish 5 items to Tantrum's effect, I will first trigger Sacre Bleu 5 times to be resolved later. Those marbles are going to wait in the bag. And then I'm going to draw 5 cards to fully resolve Tantrum. Then, when I go to resolve the 5 Sacre Bleu triggers, they'll each give +1 lore for a total of +5, and a complete questing total of 7 for Lumiere if I chose to quest with him or to use, let's say, a lucky dime. And that's quite a lot of lore, especially for decks already playing all sorts of items. Well, that's all I have for this rules video. If you have any other weird or cool or strange rules interactions, or if I got anything wrong, please let me know in the comments below. Share it down there. And if you're new here, please be sure to check out my other 2 rules videos I did for the launch of Arcasia's Island, as well as my weekly League gameplay videos. A comment, or subscribing goes a long way, and I appreciate you sticking around here till the end. Alright, know your rules for your next big event. Good luck, have fun, and as always, stay questing and stay winning.